Guys, the football's stopped. But wait, what's that coming over the hill? Why? It's the Club World Cup. What is it? Who's in it? Who needs it to be a success? And is it a good thing or a bad thing for the best sport on earth? That's what this video is all about. Let's get into it. So, what is the Club World Cup? Well, in essence, it's the World Cup, but for clubs. It'll have a group stage and then a knockout stage, and then the winner is crowned the world champion, officially speaking at least. It will happen every 4 years, just as the real World Cup does. The organizers, FIFA, and let's be honest, Infantino, claim that the Club World Cup is FIFA's new prime club competition and a truly global event that brings together the most successful club sides. This is a new era for football. So who's in this thing and how did they get there? On screen, I'm scrolling across the 32 names of the clubs in this competition, but a lot of notable mega clubs are participating. Real Madrid, PSG, Bayern, Juve, City, Chelsea, along with other notable but less mega clubs. The qualification process is a moderately complicated one, so here's the most basic version. First, the amount of spots given out per confederation are weighted, so that Europe gets the most spots and Oceania the least, with the other confederations somewhere in between, in much the same way the actual World Cup qualification works. Second, the winners of the continental competition, aka for Europe, the Champions League, and the other continents' versions of the Champions Leagues, from 2021 to 2024 all qualify. Where spots are still available, like for instance where the same club won the Champions League more than once in that time period, the rest of the spots, bar one that I will come to shortly, are given out for performances in these competitions, with FIFA implementing point systems. I say systems here because the system for Europe is different to the rest of the world, which assigns points to things like winning matches or qualifying for different rounds of the competition, aka qualifying from the group stage versus making it all the way to the semi-finals. Importantly, in Europe at least, only 2 clubs from each country can qualify, hence the lack of Liverpool or Barcelona, though 4 Brazilian clubs have managed to qualify. One Mexican club, Club Leon, have recently been kicked out after complaints that they were owned by the same people who own fellow Club World Cup participant Pachuca, with LAFC beating Club America in a playoff for Club Leon's spot, though it's worth noting that this was only decided 2 weeks before the tournament begins. That process accounts for 31 of the 32 teams. The 32nd team is the host team, a team from the nation in which the competition takes place, which this year is the United States of America. Easy, you might think, just give it to the winners of the MLS, the most recent of which are LA Galaxy. Curiously though, FIFA have instead given that place to Inter Miami. One wonders why on earth they've done that. I'm sure it was a decision taken with respect to sporting meritocracy and integrity, and not, for example, just to get more people to watch this competition. Speaking of getting people to watch, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like on this video. We're only a tiny channel, so your specific like and subscribe really does make a big difference. So that's how all the teams have got into this competition, or are about to get into this competition. But what is the point of this competition? Who needs it? And crucially, who needs it to succeed? One group, for lack of a better term, that sort of needs this competition is the United States of America, and every broadcaster, be that TV, YouTube, podcast or radio, who intends to cover the actual World Cup next year, which of course will be held across North America, but primarily in the United States of America. As you are no doubt aware, the United States is an interesting place at the moment, and of particular interest is the, shall we say, tumultuous state of their immigration services. There are innumerable stories of people being turned away from the border, and much, much worse. The reason this is relevant here is that the Club World Cup is sort of a significant dress rehearsal, a practice for the real World Cup in a year's time. For those of us looking to travel as fans, it gives us a sense of whether we will be welcome into the country and how we will be treated when we are in the country. How fans are dealt with this year will be a big indicator for the World Cup when many nationalities and ethnicities will attempt to enter the US. But it's not just those of us fans thinking of going, or those of us rubbernecking in disgust or fascination of what will happen to all these foreign fans when they arrive. It's also the machinery around the World Cup watching, and in some cases practicing, what will happen. What's going to happen to the people manning the TV cameras, the players themselves, the outspoken TV presenters or podcasters, the producers, etc. We're all wondering what will happen, and some outlets are using this Club World Cup as a practice run to find out just how this works. Finally, on this note of this being a rehearsal, FIFA and their various bureaucrats headed by the bureaucrat-in-chief and Trump's best buddy Infantino are also watching what will happen here. Buddy though they are, Infantino will know that Trump is a volatile man, capable of making what should be FIFA and by extensions Infantino's greatest triumph, the actual World Cup, a nightmare. Having this sort of soft trial, the Club World Cup, is a helpful way for FIFA and Infantino to work out what might go wrong and how they can appease Trump moving forward. On the topic of Infantino, this is one man who needs this competition, not just as a rehearsal for the actual World Cup, but as an event in itself. No stranger to publicity, or indeed to being publicly strange, Infantino has put an awful lot into this competition. He is constantly to be found promoting it from essentially inception until its opening day on the 15th of June. If this event fails, or is seen to be a huge waste of time as many are predicting, it will reflect very poorly on Infantino. Not that this seems to make a difference to him or any of the people keeping him in his position. Not only is Infantino pinning his face all over this competition, he's also managed to stump up an absurd amount of money for participants. $1 billion. I'll come more to that later, but for now what's worth noting is about where this money seems to have come from, as reported in The Guardian. After struggling to get any TV interest in covering the competition, here in the UK, ITV and BBC, our two biggest broadcasters, have passed it up, FIFA somehow managed to secure a $1 billion deal with DAZN. The same DAZN who had previously sold a stake of itself to the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Wealth Fund for $1 billion. It's interesting then that Infantino has managed to find $1 billion to give away to the participants of his Club World Cup. But wherever the funding for this came from, it is yet another reason that Infantino, and therefore FIFA, need this competition to succeed. $1 billion is an awful lot of money to plow into a failure. One final contender for needing this competition is the slightly symbiotic relationship Real Madrid could have with this competition. Now, of course, Real Madrid don't really need anything from anyone, unless of course we're counting the latest Brazilian wonderkid or Galacticos signing. However, I think there is a good case to say that Real Madrid might need this competition, or at least this year they need it, and the competition really needs Real Madrid. Fundamentally, what the Club World Cup needs and what it craves is to be taken seriously, for clubs to try hard to win it and field their best available players. As I will come to later, there is a good chance many teams might do this, but rightly or wrongly, what FIFA want is for the mega clubs to take this seriously. This is what brings in the money and the acclaim. And no club is more mega than Real Madrid. Luckily for FIFA, Real Madrid have had, or are having if we're going to count the Club World Cup as this season, something of a poor season by their lofty standards. They haven't won anything. But now, under new management, they have an opportunity. They could try to win the Club World Cup. And now they've just spent 10 million essentially just to have Trent Alexander-Arnold specifically for this competition. It really looks like they're going to try hard to win this competition. Of course, for much of the world, this would mean less than nothing, a sort of supercharged community shield perhaps. However, with both the FIFA and Real Madrid PR machines, a Club World Cup victory for the world's most prestigious club could be an excellent outcome for both Real Madrid and FIFA. The latter can point to a big club taking the competition seriously, while the former can claim to have saved their season by winning a title that officially, if not unofficially, makes them the best team on the planet. I mean, it's not like Real Madrid don't have precedent here. Recall their collective throwing of their toys out of their pram at the news Vinicius Jr. had failed to win the Ballon d'Or, and their subsequent boycotting of the awards in favour instead of lauding the FIFA Best Awards, which Vinicius and plenty of other Real Madrid affiliates did win, as the competition. That PR machine and this competition are a match made in heaven. Something similar, but with the notches dialed slightly down, can be said for Man City and other traditionally, but not this season, successful clubs in this competition, all of which can try and spin this competition as a big deal to win. So, that's what this competition is, who's in it, and who needs it. Now we should ask, is this tournament a good or bad thing? It's certainly been getting a bit of a kicking in the press from any publication not directly affiliated with FIFA, so let's start with some of the positives of this tournament. One thing to say straight away is that while there is some extreme cynicism coming from Europe, or at least Western or perhaps even Northern Europe, about this tournament, this sentiment is not shared universally throughout the world. As is well documented by journalists like Tim Vickery, in South America this tournament, or rather previous versions of this tournament, such as those that helped cement Pele's legacy, is a very big deal. Perhaps even the most prestigious competition of the year, and now of course, of every 4 years. And it's kind of understandable to see why. These are big footballing nations and legitimately massive clubs who have to watch the clubs of Europe get richer and richer and steal their players at younger and younger ages. No wonder they relish the chance to bloody the noses of these European sides in this competition. Outside of South America, this feeling still understandably exists, but with perhaps the addition of some excitement at playing famous teams in countries where football is not the primary sport or where the league struggles to attract big-name players. If the Club World Cup hosting travels, just as the real World Cup does, it will be good, all else equal, to bring the game and players to countries that don't get to see high-level football in the flesh. One other potential positive of this tournament is its timing for new players and managers or players returning from injury. Players like Rodri, for example, who are returning from significant injuries and need match minutes in order to come back ready for the new season, can use this tournament as a form of rehab, playing in matches that are likely to be competitive but not too competitive in order to regain their fitness. Additionally, new players players or new managers of clubs, such as Xabi Alonso, can use this tournament as a way to understand their teammates or to try new tactics in an environment more competitive than a friendly, but less competitive than other competitions in the proper season. And, as far as I can tell, that's about it for the positives, and you can sort of hear the sounds of me scraping the bottom of the barrel for even those positives. The negatives, unsurprisingly, seem like a much longer list. I mean, on the subject of player fitness, while what I just said about rehabbing back into the game is true, it is much more likely that this competition has a detrimental effect on player fitness across the board. It is yet another set of games for players to play on top of all the other competitions they already play in, and you've got players like the aforementioned Rodri, as well as De Bruyne and Alisson, who have already spoken out about playing too many games, as well as the FIFA Pro Players Union, who have started legal complaints against FIFA for this new injection of games. And they all have a very good point. The competition finishes 5 weeks before the Prem season starts, significantly cutting into possible rest periods for players before they have to start playing pre-season friendlies for match fitness. Note here that I am not endorsing pre-season or indeed post-season friendlies that are purely for money spinning reasons. These are also bad for player fitness. Player fitness, therefore, rather than being a positive, seems far more likely to be a negative. Returning to the point about bringing the sport to countries not used to football, or at least not top-level football, yes, this has significant positives, but as we have seen with recent World Cups, it also has very significant negatives. It can involve taking the sport to countries that, on the whole, FIFA should not be bringing attention, acclaim and funding to, at least not while they continue their regressive policies. So, depending on where the Club World Cup is held, this can either be a positive or a very significant negative. But even if we assume the absolute best about where we're bringing the sport, well, what sort of version of this sport are we actually bringing? Obviously, it's incredibly dubious whether European-based players, managers or clubs in general will actually try in these games, but even if they do, the tournament setup has been pretty farcical. That we didn't know all the participants until 2 weeks before the competition started is frankly embarrassing, as is the decision to sneak in Inter Miami for pretty transparent, Messi-based reasons, as opposed to the actual MLS champions. There are now also swirling rumours about Cristiano Ronaldo temporarily changing teams for a month in order to play in this tournament. Even if this doesn't happen, and I suspect it probably won't, the very fact that this is clearly being considered and probably hoped for by FIFA is obviously absolutely ridiculous. All of this is far closer to soap opera than it is to legitimate sporting competition and the sort of football we would want people around the globe to see and become invested in. Two final negatives concern a sense of equality in football. The first is that this competition is clashing with the Women's European Championship, with roughly the last 2 weeks of the Club World Cup running at the same time as the first 2 weeks of the Women's Euros. Whatever you think of women's football, whether you watch it or not, it does seem pretty unhelpful to suddenly hold a men's tournament full of the world's most prestigious teams at the same time as the Women's Euros, especially given FIFA's intention is to try and make this one of, if not the, most prestigious club tournament in football. The women's game is growing, and FIFA should be helping this rather than being directly responsible for introducing competition to what should be one of the showpiece events of women's football. Finally, and remaining on the theme of inequality, we have the problem of the prize money. As I've already said, there's $1 billion available for participants of this tournament, and for the winner of the tournament, that roughly works out at £100 million. And that is a very significant amount of money for a time period where clubs would normally earn essentially nothing, except maybe a little bit from some friendlies. From earning basically zero to something like 50, 75 or £100 million is absurd. This is troubling in terms of any semblance of financial equality in football, because these already absurdly rich clubs, in the case of Europe, are now going to get even richer. Additionally, outside of Europe, this level of money in the non-European game will vastly increase inequality in each of their domestic divisions, because these are divisions that have never really experienced this level of financial incentive before, but now maybe 1 or 2 clubs in their division have just got this insane financial windfall unavailable to the rest of the division. What's more, these clubs are going to get rich, or even richer in some cases, because they've qualified for a tournament that FIFA have basically conjured up out of thin air. They've whipped up some qualification rules that essentially ensure the biggest clubs make it in, and then further made sure other clubs they wanted in got in anyway. It seems obviously troubling that these clubs will get even richer and even further open up inequalities to their domestic opponents. Further, as Barney Ronnie in The Guardian points out, the fact that this money is coming from FIFA is sort of weird and unprecedented in the club game. It's very odd for essentially the sports governing regime to start putting money and subsequently inequality into the club game. It's perhaps a worryingly thin edge of a very scary wedge. But what do you guys think? Do you think this competition is a good introduction by FIFA and Infantino, or a total waste of time, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video and want more football content in the future. The last video did really well, for me at least. So we're now up to a whopping 34 subscribers. If you're not subscribed, come join the rest of us. Here's some other videos to watch next. Thanks again.